Sometimes you just need a little bit of guidance when you have so many tactical options being thrown at you, and today I'm here to provide some guidance on how you can maybe choose to build your units, or steal mine if you prefer. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel.
Unicorn Overlord.
Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, my coverage of Unicorn Overlord, my guides, my news videos, my let's plays, or just any other content that I do, a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. I've heard your clamoring cries, and I'm here today to provide some insight into some of the units that I have built, and if you wanted to pull some information from what I have done, or even just directly copy some of these units to see how they play, there's no reason that you can't, right? We're talking about 3 units in particular today. The unit that I have set up here for Alain, the unit I have set up here with Oclise and Fabian, a Griffin Knight that I made, and then finally a unit with Marcel, one of my soldiers, a kind of brutal tiny girls doing massive damage squad. So we're going to start with Alain, and then we'll go from there. This is an tank and sweep squad. What does that mean? Well, the idea here is that we have Alain and Travis together in the front. Alain as a traditional sword and board tank, as you all should know him to be at this point, and then Travis as a dodge tank who can also drain PP, throw poison around, etc., etc., generally disrupt the enemy. These two are here for one thing and one thing only: to make sure that kills are set up and damage never comes through to our sweepers in the back, Clive and Morden. Alain is set up with the Templar's sword and shield, stolen from Joseph at the beginning of the game, and until you leave Cornea, this is excellent equipment for Alain. And even in Drakkenhold or Elheim, wherever you go next, will still be very solid for him for quite a while. It increases his defense, it allows him to deal good damage, it gives him better HP recovery. It's very, very nice gear for Alain. I also gave him the Iron Shackles, which reduces his initiative, but also causes him to take 5% less damage. And this is nice because Alain doesn't need to be fast. In fact, Alain doesn't really want to be fast. The idea with Alain is that his defensive skills, Luminous Cover and Noble Guard, are going to trigger whenever attacks are coming his way or the way of his allies. He doesn't need good initiative to use these. And you want him to take a pummeling to actually absorb some damage before you come in swinging with things like Lean Edge, so he can recover the most HP possible. Now, if you are fighting cavalry and you're going to want to have Cavalry Slayer activate before they go to reduce their AP, their PP, guard seal them, then you might want to consider removing the Iron Shackles, but this is something you can do on the fly. When you go into battle against the cavalry squad, you can just open up the menu, take these off, switch to a different accessory, and suddenly Alain will be quite speedy again and can slay that cavalry. So, not a huge deal, but for general use, I do like the Iron Shackles here, as it is an excellent tank item. We then have Travis set up with some very basic thief gear, because thieves just kind of do what they do naturally as it is. He has a Black Iron Sword for good damage and crit rate, his Silken Scarf to make his evade rate even better. If you don't happen to have enough PP to use evade, you want to still be able to reliably dodge attacks, and especially dodge things like magic. And key here, the Dancer's Bracelet. This is a nice one. In this squad, Travis has the highest initiative. He has 30 compared to everyone else's 12 to 19. And that's key because he's going to come in and passive steal right off the bat, right at the start of the fight, typically leaving him with a nice little surplus, especially if he happens to hit something that has more than 1 PP, which a lot of things on Expert tend to as you get further into the game. Then he's able to put that to use not just by evading, but by using Powerful Call to buff our allies' attacks. And that's where things start to get really fun. This is really a very supporty build for Travis while still allowing him to dodge tank, which is nice. And that's key because Clive and Morden here, they want that support. Starting with Clive, I have him set up with the Unwavering Spear so that he can take down any sort of scout if I need him to. The Unwavering Spear does give him a 100% chance to hit attack, as well as just plus 10 accuracy for everything else, which is very nice. He has the Baroque Shield, just a good defensive option, something where if some sort of attack manages to sneak through our defenses, he's not going to take too much damage. And the Crude Tacit, giving him the ability to cast Warcry. Warcry is nice as it gives him a 20% buff to his physical attack, and, combined with other potential buffs, can be really, really powerful. Will be a little bit redundant with Travis and his Dancer's Bracelet, but if something's going on with Travis, he's not able to cast it, we still have that there as backup. He's set up to Wild Rush if there's a full column, dealing a very good chunk of damage to 2 enemies as well as stunning them, which is very strong. Then, if there aren't any full columns to deal with, he will True Thrust a Scout to bring them down, and then barring that is when we come in to the true sweeping potential with Assaulting Lance, targeting the lowest percent HP to then get AP back and do it all over again. This is nice as well because he does have higher initiative than Morden, so if anything else, even if he's not able to get the Assaulting Lance set up to start sweeping, he's still going to help to weaken things even further, much like Alain and Travis have done, and then that is where Morden comes in. Morden is pretty nasty, actually. I haven't really used warriors much in my streamed Let's Play, but in the demo, I've used them a fair bit, and they are quite powerful, especially the way we have Morden set up here. You can see he has a whopping 51 physical attack, so he's going to be dealing massive amounts of damage, and he is at the appropriate level to have Assaulting Blow unlocked. This is the exact same thing as Assaulting Lance, but just with axes, and it does the exact same thing for Morden that it would do for Clive. Lets him finish off a weakened enemy, get his AP back, and do it all over again. And as the third or fourth character to go in the unit, enemies are going to be softened up by the time Morden is triggering this. With his Black Iron Axe that has good physical attack and extra crit rate, his Warrior's Medallion that's boosting all of his physical attack stats even higher, and then a Carnelian Pendant to guarantee that he has extra AP in case the first Assaulting Blow doesn't finish something off, it is nigh guaranteed that this squad is going to sweep anything that they fight. There will be the odd occasion where maybe like you miss an attack or whatever and it falls apart, but 9 times out of 10, I can send this squad against pretty much anything. They will tank whatever it is that I threw them at, and then more likely than not clear it as a result. It's an awesome, strong, physical attacking squad that makes the most benefit of both the tankiness of our frontliners and the sweeping capability of our backliners. I love it. Moving on to Fabian's unit here. This is the refined version of my Firebug squad. If you've seen my coverage here and there, this is a setup that I very much enjoy having, wherein we can use the Chlorotic Staff that you get when you recruit Auch the Wizard to get the Fire Burst ability, potentially sweeping entire squads with one attack. So, how does it work? In the front line, we have a Griffin Knight and Oclese the Feathersword. These two are here almost purely for evade tanking purposes, as well as, again, setting up other executions, similar in function to the previously mentioned squad. Fabian the Griffin Knight is here to deal big damage to a row of enemies, potentially clear out some dangerous enemies who would be able to snipe our wizards, as well as just being a good evade tank, dodging attacks from the ground, being able to self-heal, all that type of good stuff. She's got the Templar's Axe, which is just a very solid piece, similar to Alain, gives her some extra defensive stats while dealing good damage. The Watchman's Lantern, so that she cannot be blinded or burnt, since we don't really have any sort of healing in this squad other than self-healing and just evasion. And then the Golden Egg, because I was using this squad to garner a lot of money, because they clear enemy squads very, very quickly. Moving on to Oclese the Feathersword, she's basically just doing what she normally does. She's got her Heaven's Wing gear that just increases her efficiency and her capabilities across the board. Not too much to discuss there. A Mercenary's Eye Patch to give her more crit rate so she can deal more damage with her attacks. And then I put the Gravekeeper Boots on her. The Gravekeeper Boots are an interesting piece. They don't trigger very often, but they activate after an ally is defeated by an attack and grant the user +1 AP. So, if push comes to shove, and maybe our Griffin Knight gets sniped, or one of our wizards goes down, then Oclese is going to get even more attacks to try and finish the job. And that's important, because this squad does have a major weakness, and that's going to be archers, or potentially sword fighters who also have true strike attacks. They will be very vulnerable to that. You need to be careful with where you move this squad, but the idea is not that they're going to be standing on the front line fighting everything that they come across. They're a flying squad. They're supposed to get in behind the enemy and blow up dangerous targets while evading anything that might be able to bring them down. Still, sometimes the worst will happen, and being able to have Oclese go in and start dealing even more damage, become a little bit more of a fighter, a little bit less of a dodge tank, is very, very nice. She has a very standard setup with her normal set of skills: Spiral Sword to give herself evasion, reduce enemy evasion; Shield Smite to reduce enemy defense, give her more defense. I prefer Spiral Sword in this instance, since our primary damage with this squad is coming from magic, not physical attacks. So the extra defense that she's draining off of enemies with Shield Smite, not super important here. She then, of course, has her Diurnal Guard and her Accelerate to just boost her own capabilities further. Oclese is good at making herself stronger, and as such, tanking better for the team. That's pretty much all she needs to do. The real bread and butter comes in when we start talking about our wizards back here. First off, I want to talk about Stefan, because he's very important for setting up Ausch's sweep at the end of the battle. He's got a very standard Baroque Rod, just to give him some extra magic attack. He doesn't need anything fancy here. A Lapis Pendant, so that he can use more Magic Pursuit, Magic Counter, and Sorcerer's Connection, which is the key bit, coming from his Familiar's Choker. The Sorcerer's Connection is a very fun piece. It activates before an ally uses a magic attack. It grants that ally plus 50% magic attack and grants the user minus 50 magic attack. The idea here is that Auch is going to attack with his Fireball, and Stefan is going to buff him. So he's going to deal a massive amount of damage, potentially clear one target, if not severely weakening it and setting it on fire, and then Stefan's own attack is going to be weakened. That's important, because the goal here is to leave at least one enemy in the squad alive, on fire, for Ausch's Fire Burst. At that point, Stefan will be weakened. He'll cast his fireball on anything that is not burning, weaken them, also light them on fire, potentially get a magic pursuit or a magic counter in there to spread some more damage around. And then Auch will end the fight with a fire burst on an enemy that is burning. 9 times out of 10, again, much like our Alain squad, anything that I send this unit against will just detonate enemies. They're best at clearing bosses, as the extra HP that boss squads tend to have mean they'll be right before the picking with Fire Burst. They are typically left alive, even if they are on fire, and then the extra damage that we're getting off of that is huge. If you did not know, Fire Burst comes from the Chlorotic Staff. It activates at the end of a battle, attacks a single enemy with magic, and hits all enemies if the initial target is burning. At that point, we've spread around a lot of damage with dual fireballs, the big sweeping axe swing from our Griffin Knight, and Oclise's targeted attacks. So the enemy is going to be ripe for the picking, and most often will get executed by this attack. It's a very fun squad. I can't wait to see how else I'm able to optimize it going into the full game. But even just here, now in the tail end of the quests in Cornea, it's extremely effective without the need for too much particular setup. Like, this is all just gear that I pretty much just got playing the game. I didn't have to go out of my way to set this up. It just kind of falls into your hands, and it's very, very effective as a result. Finally, I want to go over here to a little bit more of an unorthodox squad, but I was very impressed by the triple soldier squad in Ausch's fight when you go to recruit him, so I wanted to set up something a little similar. Now, we don't have a triple soldier squad here in particular, but we do have 2 at play, and they're quite nice, if I do say so myself. The goal here is to have a little bit of a all-arounder, tanking, damage-dealing, anti-scout squad. Our 2 soldiers are set up to be fairly tanky frontliners, not the most resilient things around, but they don't need to be, as they do have their first aid to heal themselves. They're set up to be able to deal with flyers, full columns of enemies, cavalry, execute low HP targets, and they're pretty damn good at their job, even though they're rocking fairly standard gear. Following that up, we do have Nina the Warrior, set up to function similarly to Morden in our Alain squad. She is ready to assaulting blow and finish off any enemies that have been weakened by the rest of the squad, and seeing as how she is likely to go last, she'll be in a good position to do so with her lowest initiative. She also has the Counter Belt, which is a fun little piece. If an enemy attacks with an active skill, she counterattacks a single enemy for a chunky 150 physical potency, and that's not bad, because like Binding Guard is great, making sure that enemies can't guard, that's fine. But the issue is Nina is the slowest one here, so by the time she's attacking, she's not really worried about enemies guarding. Here, with this, an enemy can come in swinging, and she will swing right back with that big crushing hammer and deal a lot of good damage. She also has the Vitality Talisman to give herself a little bit of a tanking buff. Again, this is a squad that can be vulnerable. We need them to survive long enough for our soldiers to actually use first aid on people, but with this, she's generally able to do so. Finally, the squad is rounded out by Melisandre. She is the biggest damage dealer, at least at the start of the fight, before we start getting an assaulting blow chain going, and she is definitely pretty nasty. Now, notably, I do have her unique weapon Stingray on her that gives the Artenier Strike ability, but in conversation with folks in my stream, we were discussing that realistically, the Sword Fighter's Hastened Strike is in most cases better than the Artenier Strike. It has the exact same activation conditions, attacking a single enemy with a first strike at the start of a battle, and it has 50 more physical potency than the unique Artenier Strike that we get from the Stingray. The only benefit that the Stingray has is it gives you +2 passive points if you defeat the target, which is nice because then you'll be able to parry all that type of stuff. However, something to keep in mind, you're not necessarily going to be parrying that often because you've got Melisandre in the backline here. So realistically, Hasten Strike would be the thing to have up here, and Melisandre would benefit from having an artifact that's different from these gauntlets. Personally, I think having her steal the first aid kit from her attendant Colm will be good, as it'll allow her to join in with the soldiers in patching up the squad and continuing to fight. She does have a Lapis Pendant so that she can do both this and bring out her Hastened Strike, which is nice, and it will allow her to be able to finish off any scouts and things like that. Finally, she has her Keen Edge that gives her extra critical rate and allows her to deal good damage, and overall, I was surprisingly proud of this squad. Like, it's something I just kind of threw together on a lark because I figured it'd be funny. They deal good damage, and they're able to hold the line for a long time. As an infantry squad, they do have 6 stamina, which means that they are able to fight for quite a while before needing to rest, and they do have the greater garrison ability that allows them to recover HP and stamina faster when garrisoned. So slapping this group onto a bridge or a tower and just letting the enemy come to them is surprisingly effective, and with all that first aid going around, they keep themselves going for quite a while. It's a sustained squad, squad more than a sweep squad, but they're able to deal with a large variety of enemies, and that's pretty much what you want from a squad that's going to be tanking a lot like that. And that, my friends, is 3 squads that I think you should steal from me, or at least draw inspiration from when building your own units. Again, this is a setup from the demo, but there's really no reason that you can't use this in the full release of the game, whether you played the demo yourself and carried your save over, or you're starting fresh from a clean save for the first time. There's a ton of unit customization, a ton of character customization, and so many different strategies that you can employ in Unicorn Overlord that I'm going to be doing a lot of videos like this going forward. So if you've enjoyed it, you want to see more of it, let me know in the comments, leave a like on the video, and if there's particular unit combinations that you enjoy that you think I or other people in the community should try, drop that in the comments as well. There's been a lot of inspiration that I've drawn from y'all in the discussions that you've had about Unicorn Overlord. I know I'm not the granddaddy of knowing all strategy with this game by any means, so anything I can learn from you guys would be very much appreciated. With that said, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.